So tariffs, our favorite topic, Trump's favorite topic. We keep coming back to it because it's continuously in the news, and Trump keeps bringing it into the news one way or the other. Anyway, end of last week, there was this story that came out that MAGA and Trump just jumped on. I mean, it made their day. It was so exciting. They were so thrilled. This is the headline. Fed study vindicates Trump trade policy. Fed study vindicates Trump trade policy. 150 years of evidence shows tariffs lower inflation. I mean, this is amazing. Amazing. A sweeping new analysis of trade policy, of tariff policy, spanning 150 years, suggests that the economic establishment may have fundamentally misunderstood how tariffs affect prices and employment. A finding with profound implications for understanding President Donald Trump's trade policy and proper response by the Federal Reserve. Researchers at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco examined major tariff changes from 1870 through 2020 across the United States and the United Kingdom and France. Their conclusion challenges the conventional wisdom that dominated economic policy debates in recent years. When countries raise tariffs, prices actually fall, not rise. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to doubt the empirical prowess of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco and its researchers. So what the hell is going on? Have I been lying to you all these years? And it's been years, by telling you that tariffs raise prices, hurt the economy, do bad stuff? No. What is the, and a bunch of people, by the way, retweeted this study, and it went all out, and people were thumping their chest, and this is amazing, and this is great. What actually happens? What is actually going on here? So it does show the tariffs, over the long run, reduce inflation, not immediately, but over a longer period of time, actually reduce prices. Why do they reduce prices? Why do they reduce prices? Because they dramatically reduce economic activity. They reduce employment. And as employment goes down and economic activity goes down, people have less money, and they basically can afford and buy fewer things. There's less demand, and prices will generally go down. So they go up when tariffs are first introduced. Then the economy suffers, and then prices go down a little bit. So, yeah, if what you care about is not sheer prices, right? But what you care about is prosperity, well-being, economic well-being, then tariffs are an awful idea. Tariffs seem to be anti-inflationary because they result in a weak economy, right? So when the economy goes down, prices are not going to go up. Think about, one of the big examples of this, and this is not always causal, right? This is the problem with empirical studies. You have to differentiate causality. But think about Smoot-Hawley, which was passed, I think, what was it, 1930? So it was passed during the Great Depression. So the Great Depression, you get the stock market collapse, you get a recession, taxes are raised, all this stuff. It's becoming a depression. Banks are collapsing. And then, so demand is collapsing. And then you increase tariffs. Well, yeah, tariffs are not going to raise prices because demand is collapsing around you. So tariffs didn't cause the collapse in demand in that case. It coincided with the collapse in demand. And that's what the study shows. tariffs, like any tax, reduce economic growth. If you dramatically increase the corporate tax or the income tax or any tax, it will have similar effects. Economic growth will go down, unemployment will go up, and prices at the margin will go down because people will have less money to spend. I don't know, why. I guess I don't know why this is so hard. Right? So, yeah. Tariffs are bad. They're bad. They might not be bad for prices in the long run because they're bad for other stuff that happens to reduce prices along the way. But you just can't, you can't get around the fact that tariffs are taxes. And taxes reduce activity. Whatever you tax, you get less of. Here you're taxing consumption. You get less of that. Maybe that's a good thing for some of you. Maybe you think that's a good thing. It's a good thing if it's the only, if you can at the same time reduce taxes on, first of all, if you tax all consumption, not just consumption that comes from overseas, thus distorting the market. But if, as you tax consumption, I'm all for consumption taxes, if at the same time you get rid of income taxes. But that is not happening, will not happen. There's no way for that to happen. The consumption tax needs to be fairly high, and it can't just be tariffs. It has to be on all goods. And if they did on all goods, then yeah, okay. I'm willing to replace the income tax with the sales tax. I think that would actually have positive economic implications. But then, over the weekend, and really he's floated this before, we've talked about this, Trump offered, again, his so-called tariff dividend. I mean, he came out and said, he literally said this on Air Force One, he said, the tariff allows us to give a dividend if we want to do that. We're going to be doing a dividend, which people will enjoy and spend and do what they want. But we're also going to be reducing debt very substantially. Reducing debt very substantially. By the way, he promised this in his first term, and debt only increased dramatically in his first term. But let's remind everybody, because you probably need reminders, debt is increasing every single day. It's increasing at an annual rate of $1.8 trillion. $1.8 trillion, just debt. Which means, the current total debt that we have is something like 38 trillion. We're increasing that by 1.8 every year. And of course, because we have to pay interest on that, that is likely to increase. And there's no plan in Congress. We know what Doge did, bupkis, nothing. As I predicted, did nothing. And the reality is that we're seeing, debt. We're seeing that there's no plan anyway to reduce spending or to increase taxes other than tariffs. But the increase in taxes off of tariffs is not big enough. It's just not enough revenue. And the reality is that the $1.8 trillion is after you take into account the increased revenue from tariffs. So it's complete fantasy. So debt is not being reduced at all. At all, never mind, as he says, very substantially. It's not even reduced a little bit. Indeed, debt is increasing dramatically, substantially, every single day, every single moment that the government is open, that the government is spending money. There's no tariff surplus. We raise taxes, more revenue is coming into the government, but not enough to close the deficit. David said I should trademark trillion. I think so too. That should be my thing. Trillion. Now, what happens if you do $2,000 per person? I haven't run the math on how much debt that would increase. But the reality is that, maybe tariffs are $300 billion. So again, 1.9 trillion, 1.8 trillion, 1.9 trillion, something like that. Trillion, not any trillion, just trillion. And he wants to then pass out 2,000 each. And what will that do? That'll increase the debt, so the debt will no longer be 1.8 trillion, the deficit. The deficit will now increase to 1.8 trillion plus $2,000 times however many people get a check, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. So it will be over 2 trillion. And if you send everybody a check, if you literally take on debt, borrow money, and then give people a check in the mail for them to go out and spend the money on stuff, what do you get? What did we learn during the COVID stimulus that happens when you send everybody a check, when you deposit money in people's bank accounts to spend? You get price inflation. You get increases in prices. People take that money and they go consume. I mean, the stupidity, sorry, but I'm just giving you a what do you call it? What do you call it? A microaggression, warning. Microaggression warning. You might be microaggressed. I said years and years ago that this president's understanding of economics is that of a 5-year-old. And I've been chided for that, and I've been told I shouldn't do that. But the reality is that he reinforces that every single day. Every single day, you hear something coming out of his mouth that is unbelievably economically ignorant. And, he just has an understanding of economics that is of a 5-year-old. That's just the reality. People around him sell their souls to stay around him because they know better. Did you see the Treasury Secretary Bessent go on television and tell the American people that the reason beef prices are going up is because illegal immigrants cross the border with their diseased cows. And those diseased cows have infected American cows. And they're all dying. And as a consequence, there's less beef. And as a consequence, prices are going up. I didn't realize, and maybe you didn't realize this either, that illegal immigrants were crossing in from the border with cows. I mean, how absurd, ridiculous, stupid is that? I mean, they can barely make it across themselves. And those cows are not deported? I mean, he literally said this. I saw the video of him saying this on Fox. It's, of course, so here's the point. J.D. Vance is going on TV telling you that home prices are higher, that high home prices are the consequence of illegal immigrants. Of course, crime is increasing somewhere, I guess, because of illegal immigrants. And of course, you're paying higher beef prices because of illegal immigrants. These people, think we're stupid. First of all, they are sick, but they think we're stupid. Every problem in America, which is, I guess we are stupid, because the reality is this is the campaign Donald Trump ran in 2015 and now. Every problem in America can be reduced to one source. Every problem that you have in your personal life, the fact that you don't have a job, the fact that you cannot get health insurance, the fact that you can't get a home, the fact that your beef prices are going up, all these things and more. Crime, everything, every problem in America today is caused by, yes, you guessed it, illegal immigrants. But we're not xenophobic or anything like that. It's just a fact. Just look at the numbers. So yeah, this is where we are. I mean, Bessek really said this, and he's smart. He I think he sometimes gets into a corner during an interview, and he just doesn't know where to go with it, and so he makes shit up. He just makes it up on the spot. I can't imagine he thinks this in advance. He just comes out, and he's probably super embarrassed afterwards. Yeah, somebody says. Ike says it's the new Jews. Yes, and I said this in 2015. I told you this exactly. I said Trump's campaign is all based on the idea that all your problems, every single problem that you have, is caused by the other. The other. And since it's not politically correct, at least it wasn't in 2015, to name the other as the Jew, which is what they've done in Europe for hundreds of years, we'll use illegal immigrants or immigrants more broadly as the cause, or Chinese or whatever, right? But immigrants. Yeah, I mean, yes, this has been evident now for 9 years, 2025, 10 years. 10 years this has been going out. And he keeps doing it because it works politically, because it's easy for the I guess throngs of mindless Americans to say, yeah, illegal immigrants, they're the problem. They're the ones harass, they're the ones destroying our economy, destroying our world. It's not tariffs. Couldn't be tariffs. There's no way it's tariffs. That is not destroying anything. One other thing that came out, when was this, Friday? Or maybe earlier today, is about this re-industrialization of America. You remember that? We were going to re-industrialize. Tariffs were going to make things so expensive, we stopped buying them, and therefore companies would have to start building them in America. So we would have this huge increase in building factories and manufacturing, and we would have a renaissance in manufacturing and a massive growth in industrialization, re-industrialization. Well, I mean, according to the Southern Business and Development Project, right, the Southern Business and Development, I guess it's a newspaper, a business publication. Project activity, that is activity of building manufacturing plants in 2025 has been the worst in its 31 years of covering manufacturing and plant expansion. So actually construction. It's actual construction of new manufacturing facilities. It doesn't include AI, because that's not manufacturing, is at the lowest it's been since they started measuring this 31 years ago. I don't know. I guess maybe some of us economists were right. Maybe. I mean, I shouldn't call myself an economist. Maybe some of those smart economists were right. Maybe economics has some use, some valid. Sometimes it's right. And on top of that, according to ISM, the ISM Manufacturing Index, which is an index of manufacturing in the United States, it has now fallen to 48.7, which is under 50. Under 50 suggests contraction. That is, manufacturing is actually contracting. And indeed, it turns out that the U.S. manufacturing sector has been in recession, i.e. contracting, for 34 of the last 36 months. So it didn't start with Trump. It started with Biden. But manufacturing shrinking in the United States. We're not reindustrializing. We're continuing or accelerating deindustrialization. Again, economists said that tariffs would not result in reindustrialization. The tariffs don't lead to more industry. I don't know, those economists, pesky scientists. It's awful. It really is terrible. It doesn't stop MAGA, it doesn't stop Trump, it doesn't stop any of these people from continuing. But really, Trump knows this, and his administration knows this. Because for any sector where there's some trouble, or any sector that might actually lead to economic growth in the United States, what does Trump do? Cuts tariffs. I mean, you know, think about the fact that when it comes to AI, computers, electronics, phones, anything to do with tech, that's all exempt from tariffs. It's all exempt. Why is it exempt? Because tariffs are harmful, and we don't want this industry to be harmed. So we exempt it. I mean, we've exempted energy from Canada because we need energy, and we need to drive prices down, not up, so we're not tariffing it. I mean, God, eggs from Turkey are exempt from tariffs. Why? Because we want to lower cost for consumers, and we know tariff increase costs. So we're going to lower costs by exempting them. How about beef from Argentina? Same thing. How about, as of Friday, fertilizer from pretty much anywhere? Yeah, we need to help those farmers, so we're not going to tariff the goods that they use. And of course, coffee and bananas and, you know, stuff that you would put in your grocery bag. And you're complaining about cost of living going up, so they cut tariffs, which suggests that that tariffs raise prices in spite of the Fed study. Here's a good quote. Thanks to President Trump for removing the tariffs President Trump placed on these agricultural products, this is what winning looks like. Placing tariffs, seeing costs rise, people upset, and then lowering them to appease the people who got upset. I mean, I think, you know, his popularity numbers are dropping like a rock, and I think, or dropping. I mean, they were already low, but dropping. And so I think people are starting to figure it out. Maybe. I mean, I think this will require the second coming. Maybe some of the people who criticize me for criticizing Trump on tariffs will show up on my chat one of these days and apologize. Maybe. But probably not. Probably not. And then on top of this, the reality is the tariffs are just, you know, this is from an article, I think by, let me just see, I think it's by Scott Lincecum. No, it's by an article in Politico. And it says, business from Wall Street to Main Street are struggling to comply with President Trump's Byzantine tariff regime, driving up costs and counteracting for some the benefits of the corporate tax cut Republicans passed earlier this year. I'm reading from the article. To give an example, an industrial product that faces a monthly uniform 5% tariff rate in the past would now be taxed at 15% if it comes from the EU or Japan, 20% from Norway and many African countries, 24 to 25% from countries in Southeast Asia, and upwards of 50% from India, Brazil, or China. This has been an exhausting year, I'd say, for most CEOs in the country. This is quoting a CEO. The level of executive time that's being put into this, into accounting for all this, and dealing with it from a management perspective has been enormous. So instead of focusing on innovation or, for example, growth, they're focusing on how they deal with tariffs. Upping the pressure, the Justice Department has announced that it intends to make the prosecution of customs fraud one of its top priorities. So now they're going to go sue these companies, go after these companies for customs fraud. The proliferation of trade regulation and threat of intensified enforcement has driven many companies to beef up their staff and spend what could add up to tens of millions of dollars to ensure that they are not running afoul of Trump's requirements. The time and expense involved, combined with the tens of billions of dollars in higher tariffs that companies are paying each month to import goods, amount to a massive burden that is weighing down industries traditionally reliant on imported products. And it's denting, for some, the impact of the hundreds of billions of dollars of tax cuts that companies will receive over the next decade via the One Big Beautiful Bill Act championed by the White House. Can I say it? I think I should say it. I told you so. I mean, tariffs are massive economic distortion. They misallocate labor, they misallocate time, they misallocate thought, they distort prices, and they're a hidden, or not so hidden, tax on all Americans. It's not good. It's really, really, really bad. And, you know, at some point, people are going to have to figure this out. And maybe there'll be growing pressure on this administration to, I mean, if Trump really wants to help American consumers and lower the cost of living for Americans and reduce costs, it's actually, you know, he could actually have a big impact. Just eliminate all tariffs on all goods forever. Zero them out. Zero. And, I mean, the economic boost that would provide, the economic boost that would provide to Americans would be stunning and unprecedented.